morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this week's Weekly Energy Boost. My name is Elisheva, and I'm here this morning with both David Ghiyam and Daniel Naor. We were lucky enough to pull Daniel in to be our guest this morning on the episode that we're dedicating to talking about the power of words. We've probably had 8 episodes around this topic. You may be saying, well, wait a second, didn't you talk about that last week, David? The truth is, you'll see if you look at the library of podcasts, we do repeat certain topics, always, of course, from a different angle. But the truth is, this is one that, we've been studying Kabbalah probably for a grand total of everybody here in the room, 100 years. And this is a lesson that we can
100 years.
Come on. You can't hear it enough. It's like you forget it, you hear it, and there's some sort of slick way it crawls back into your, the mindless chatter, gossip, a little lie here, a little lie there, the justifications, the defense, whatever. We have this, I don't know, sort of ridiculous way of falling back into bad patterns of speaking in ways that don't serve us, that clog the pipes, that interfere. And to me, if we could have a show about it once a month, it wouldn't be enough. So here we are again. Daniel, we mentioned Daniel's expertise a couple of weeks ago, so we were able to bring him in, and it couldn't be better timing because really the gift of what Daniel does, and feel free to chime in at any second, is to hone in on those limiting self-dialogues. To me, I don't want to, I'm going to get off my soapbox in a second, but who do you talk to more than anyone in the world? Yourself. And even though we don't necessarily always speak verbally, meaning outside, I do talk to myself if I'm honest, but out loud, but the truth is that constant internal banter is really part of what gets us in our way so much. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to bring you here as our resident belief system breaker. How's that for a title?
Break your beliefs.
And before Daniel says anything, I just want to be clear with our audience. We bring people on the show that we believe in, and we believe in their service. Just because Daniel's our friend, our colleague, we work in the same organization.
Our fellow Pisces.
If he was bad at what he does, we would just ignore him and ignore any email that he would send to us about being on our show.
Even what I paid you?
Yeah, well, that's especially, we don't take bribes. We take bribes, but we don't use them.
And I want to be clear, there's no financial compensation that any of us receive. And even Daniel, for the services that he gives, which I've heard over a dozen of my own personal students connect to and their life change from it, Daniel doesn't receive personal compensation. So all of that we do, including the show, maybe we need to do some kind of advertising just to raise money for our show, but we do not receive financial compensation for what we do. We are here to provide a spiritual service to our community, our large community all around the world, and we thank you for your support. So Daniel's here because we believe in what he's saying and no other reason. So Daniel, go ahead.
All right. So I love this work of belief system, the work of affirmation, the working and truly helping people find out who they are and finding out what are the lies that they picked up along the way that they started believing. I actually heard your show a couple of weeks ago talking about pain, and I loved it because you guys talked about the stories that we tell ourselves. And that's exactly it, right? There's all kinds of stories that we've been telling ourselves that simply has nothing to do with the truth. And what I like about combining the work of belief system and affirmation with Kabbalah, that Kabbalah gives it a lot more depth, right? Like, we've all been doing spiritual work for a long time, and we've all been working on our tikkun, and we're teaching about it, and we're guiding students along transforming their tikkun. And sometimes it's a little difficult to get to the root cause. So what I do in the sessions, what I like to work with people one-on-one is finding these access points. When did it start? Because yes, we know originally it started with a tikkun before my soul even came to this world. There was a certain tikkun, a life lesson that I came to learn. being less judgmental, be more outspoken, feeling less guilty. But then in our day-to-day life, or if we're taking the story of a lifetime, we can find these, what I like to call these access points, when I start to believe the lie, right? So it can be from childhood, can be teenage years. The earlier we go back, and that's what I like to do in the first part, usually in my sessions, is I call it digging, right? Like really asking questions, digging deeper, and the more we can go back and when it originally started, that's where we can find the original limited belief, which always amazes me and the person how much of that is driving their entire life and limiting their entire life. And just by shedding light on it, putting the spotlight on it, we're able to bring so much clarity by itself.
All right, I'm going to jump in here. So let's make this practical for our audience so that they can get value out of just you being here right now. Let's say a person repetitively has issues in their romantic relationships. Either they are, they can't be in a committed one, or they always maybe attract abusive ones, emotionally abusive ones. It just doesn't work out. How would you handle a situation? Because we teach Kabbalah and people are inspired and they go, wow, okay, I want to change this issue I have, or I want to be different. It's inspiring when you hear this wisdom, but I think what everyone always asks us is how do we do it? And even though we have tools, it sounds like whatever you're offering, from my experience, has been that you're breaking it down very quickly. Like within 45 minutes, a person is finding the root cause of why they've been a certain way for 20 years. So how would you break down the person whose relationship, they just can't be in a good relationship no matter what they do?
Yeah. So we always start with the current moment, the current situation. What does it look like? Why? What is the pattern that you notice right now? What's not working? With whom is it not working? What's triggering you? And once we identify that, because we need to start somewhere, then we're tracing it back. So a good question to ask is, when was one of the first times you remember having a similar pattern like that? And, it gets us to think. It gets us to think of, okay, and usually, just asking the right questions or asking ourselves the right questions, our mind is like a computer. So it's looking for it, and we give ourselves, if we ask the right question, we most of the time give ourselves the answers that we're looking for. So just taking it back, so starting by what's the issue now, taking it back. And I would say in relationships, oftentimes it has to do, not always, obviously, but oftentimes, 70% of the time, it has to do in not feeling good enough, low self-worth.
For both men and women.
Yes, for both.
They don't feel good enough about themselves. Even though externally they might put on this bravado or this facade of I'm secure with myself, I'm happy. You're saying somewhere deep down inside, they're not believing in themselves. Exactly. What are they not believing in? What believing in what? Sounds general. What are they not believing in?
Well, it can be that in the past they were made feel less than, or they were put on a lot of pressure from their parents and getting good grades, and it was never good enough. So the self-image, what I love about this work, and all of that, what inspired, because I started to realize if I want to have breakthroughs, I need to start on my self-image. There were certain things that I was doing over and over and simply not seeing breakthroughs or getting in the same loop. And I realized it really has to do with how I perceive myself. It has nothing to do with the story with the person. Is all about how I view myself. And
so you're saying a person who let's say goes through a period of their life where they don't have a lot of breakthroughs, or maybe the standard is so high for them that they never meet that standard, that creates this residual effect of not being good enough that they then carry into relationships. And when I don't feel good enough, well, what do I do? Let's say I met someone, they're great, it seems like it's working out well, we've been dating for 2 months, and I just feel amazing. What will this person usually do to sabotage this relationship because of the not feeling good enough correction that they have?
Yeah. So oftentimes they would self-sabotage themselves by, sometimes it's overeating, right? Sometimes people overeat, so It's actually in the subconscious mind a protective mechanism, so they don't, date the people that they actually want to date. So it's all in the subconscious mind. It's all in the subconscious mind. Nobody's completely aware of it because it not lies in the conscious mind, the limited belief. Most of it is in the subconscious mind. So it's interesting. I talked to, last week I had a session with someone, and really it was a revelation for me. I never have thought about that, but through talking about it, we realized that her worry, so we started with her worry. That's what she wanted to talk about. She constantly worries about her children, about her spouse, about everything. And we took it back, and bottom line is we realized that her subconscious mind doesn't know to differentiate between worry and care. It's mixed up, and it started in the childhood that her father constantly worried, and that's how he expressed love. So that's how she continued to express love, is to worry. And she felt, subconscious mind felt that by worry, I care. I show care and love.
That's good. Elisheva, that's good. So many people think that the way to care is to worry about something.
Well, there's a certain, it seems like the responsible thing to do. If I'm consumed with what's going on, that's an indication that I care. That's an indication that I'm taking care of what's going on. I see people do it at work all the time. At home, they're stressed out about what's going on at work, or at work, they're stressed out about what's going on at home. And it's fulfilling. It feels like ownership. I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing, when in the end, it's, trying to reveal light that isn't able to be revealed in that moment. You're not present.
Right.
I love it.
Well, I think that, by the way, even going into the relationship domain is really powerful, because the Kabbalists teach that if we have chaos in our relationships, it's a result of negative speech. And that negative speech shell that we create, it seems like people think, well, it's not that big of a deal. And that's really one of the, I think, the beautiful things about what Kabbalah shows us is that in the unseen world, everything is connected. So our life is constantly showing us red lights, like engine lights going on constantly in the area that we need to pay attention to. I think what's going on now in the world with the coronavirus is like the biggest engine light we've ever had, right? So in the Kabbalists teach that the engine light for you need to watch your mouth is relationships. And the negligence, I would say gross negligence we have around the things we say, how we say them, even when we think nobody cares or no one's looking or it doesn't matter anymore, in our times especially, we're being shown that it does matter, that things, there are consequences, there is cause and effect, and we can no longer ignore how powerful our words are.
Yeah, especially now that we spend most of the time at home. And, for those who are actually alone, like they can get to spend more time with themselves and listen to the self-talk and become more aware of it. And even if we spend more time with families, with our spouse, partner, and kids, we also become more aware of what are the words that we're saying to the people that are close to us. And it reflects back many times, right? I know with my children many times, like they say things and like, oh, where did they pick that up from, right? And obviously it's from home, from us. Right. So it's a really great time to become self-aware and pay more attention to what we're talking about, the power of words, especially the self-talk.
And the reason, another reason I think it's great that you're here is because, you could be listening to what we're saying and say, well, I don't talk bad about anybody. I'm so gracious and kind. I'm always giving compliments. But if we have that negative self-talk, who are we helping? Or, I know that one of the big ones that gets people is mocking, making fun of other people. Even if it's, joking, benign, it's not malicious. But mocking people is a huge source of negativity. Now the whole stand-up industry is crumbling with my comment. But it's like making fun of people, places, and things is also a form of negative speech. And to realize that, I think the goal of the show is to help people realize that we're really not doing everything in our power to live our best life.
Well, let's go deep here, because we don't want to just be the ones that say, don't do this or do this, right? Don't speak bad. Everybody knows.
Are you mocking me?
I'm saying
You're mocking me, David.
In
I'm
general.
going to create a meme after this with both of you, mocking both of you.
Because I think what hits home for people is not just stating the obvious, right? The obvious is, yes, evil speech is bad. You ask anybody, what do you prefer, evil speech or good speech? They're all going to say the good. But what can we share with the audience that's going to help them understand what evil speech actually creates?
Okay, I have,
All right?
I have a list
Let's go deeper.
of subtle forms of evil speech.
All right,
Because
so-
even when you say evil speech, you say it like everybody knows what it is. It's a Kabbalah phrase, and it has many, many subcategories.
You're gonna start by telling us what are the types and forms of evil speech. I would like to even preface it with what happens when a person speaks, because words that come out of our mouths create energy, and I think sometimes we take that for granted, that our words are energy. And it says that actually a piece of our soul is manifested in the words that we share. And when a word does something to build or add value or creates positive energy in the world, what it does is then it reinforces that energy back into our soul. So we actually live longer. We actually become healthier. It improves our digestion. I mean, we can take it as far as you want to go.
Clearer skin.
Yeah, you have clearer skin.
Your car runs more smoothly.
Your nasal passages open up. You can breathe better.
Right.
So obviously, every time a word is constructive, building, or adding value, what we say reveals the light of the Creator, adds value back into our soul. Whenever a word comes out of our mouth and falls in the category of all the things you're about to share, which would be construed as negative speech or evil speech, it takes a piece of our soul away, but also it creates a negative force, a negative entity in our lives. And imagine each word creates its own entity. So if a person, let's say, complains, which falls under the category of evil speech, just complains because they're in a bad mood, they feel like they've been victimized by a certain situation.
Maybe they're really good at seeing what's wrong with stuff.
Even better.
It looks like it's a gift. I can
Right.
see what's wrong in situations and people. So I'm going to talk about it and I'm going to point it out.
And while there is a positive side to that, people who are very keen and very good at seeing the faults and the crack lines in people and in situations, often that could be followed up with tons of words.
Avalanche. That crack leads to an avalanche.
An avalanche, a tsunami of words that aren't constructive. They could be accurate, they could be truthful,
Right.
but they are so destructive. They drain the energy out of the room, they drain the energy out of people. That person himself or herself feels yucky just by saying it. So what's happening is you're creating thousands of negative entities that then permeate into your home. You wonder why your children get sick. You wonder why the bank account...
Relationships.
Maybe we should also talk about what entices people to say it. If we know that it's wrong intellectually and we feel drained minutes after or a day after, so why do we keep on going to that? Like, what drives us?
All right, so this is all the things we're going to talk about. Number one, we just hammered home that it creates negative forces, negative entities, and it's causing a lot of the chaos in our lives. Okay, great. We're excited about it. Now, Elisheva, please share with us the categories and different types of evil speech so people can relate to it. And then we'll talk about what Daniel said, which is what causes us to do it in the first place.
Where's the addiction? No, I also want to say, by the way, as I'm listening to David talking about the avalanche, I'm thinking about the avalanche creators in my life. And, if you know somebody who has that habit of talking, putting themselves down, putting other people down, anybody that you know that you wish would elevate the way they talk, the way they speak, not because it bothers you, but for their own benefit, share the show with them, forward the link, click, share, whatever it is. Let us be the messengers, and hopefully even if they get 2 minutes of what we're sharing today, it's going to make a big difference. I think the biggest... the Academy Award winner for most evil speech goes to gossip, right? Because gossip, their entire industry is based upon, have you heard the latest, right? Get the latest. They even say, get the latest gossip. We have media channels, magazines, radio shows, TV shows. What is wrong with talking about what other people are doing? I think that's, people say it's innocent. I just want to know what the Kardashians are doing. I just want to, hear how Meghan and Harry are settling
Well, the
into.
question is why you want to know.
So that's what I'm
right?
saying. Like, what's the big deal? Why? Okay, why do you want to know? Is we're always looking at the
So what is gossip? You define it for us.
talking about anybody,
Just
good or bad.
Just talking
If
about.
there's no qualifications, if there's, it doesn't matter if it's true, it's a lie. I mean, obviously, it's worse if it's a lie, but the idea is we should not ever need to talk about anyone else for any other reason. First of all, think about how little you'd speak if you did not talk about anybody ever for any reason.
That's true. Isn't it true, though, that, let's say, I want to talk about someone else, let's say with my friend or spouse, because we truly care about them and we want to help them.
So that gets a different show. We're gonna have another show about that. That's, there is, as David said, when it's constructive, when it's building, right? I often come to you and say, I have the student. If they came to you and asked you this, how would you handle it? Now, I probably will not say his name is Bob Smith and he lives at 123 Sesame Street Lane.
I think it's important to differentiate.
Absolutely. And by the way, that's something that I think there exists in many professions, right? That you have colleagues that you collaborate with, that you get advice from, you have a mentor, you ask your mentor how to take care of this client. It's for the sake of your growth and their growth. It does qualify itself for a different category.
Yeah, just that people that listen to it won't panic and won't talk at all.
Right. No, for sure. And I think that one of the bigger challenges is the subtle ones. Like, you come home from one day when we'll start to go to work again, you'll come home from work at the end of the day and you say to your husband, your wife, your partner, honey, how was work? How do you share how was work without talking about anybody else? How do you I don't know, even your kids go to school. How do you talk about what's going on at school without talking about something someone else did? It's really, I mean, if you follow the rules all the way, you're quiet most of the day.
So I want to break down gossip into its components because there's 3 components under gossip. Number 1, talebearing. Talebearing is, so we're getting more granular here. It's the person who transfers information from point A to point B. It's just those people who just transferring information that's not constructive.
That's usually across the family tree, right? Have you heard what cousin Lenny did? Would you believe that Aunt Gladys, blah, 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 and you don't even have to say, would you believe or did you hear? I know, no names, and maybe I should say it's not in my family, but I know people that they get on the phone with their brother or their sister or their son or their daughter, at the end of the day,
that's what they do.
Just to report what did they gather during the day.
They're just telling stories. People who tell stories, and those stories basically have no construction whatsoever and cause some form of negativity. Also, you may derive selfish pleasure from that telling of the story. Actually creates negative energy. And I think most people don't know that.
Right.
Just bearing a tale. Let me tell you a tale. Let me tell you something I know or I learned. And we're not really thinking about it. We're not really conscious of it. We're just in the mood to get energy from talking. Especially if what we're sharing is to build ourselves up and put someone else down. That's like the upgrading the negativity.
I think in the generations before us, there was a lot of that because people feel good through the accomplishments of their children. And when they hear that other people's children are less accomplished, points for me. My kids are more accomplished, So I think moving out of that tradition,
and even generational
tradition. That's the other thing is that, you may not be the gossiper, but you listen to the gossip.
Right.
David, get granular.
Okay. Evil speech actually is sharing of something negative that is true. Slander is sharing something negative that is false. So slander would be me saying something about someone that hurts their character or makes them feel bad, and it's false. So I literally made it up or I exaggerated it. An example of this can be, and I think examples help people make things practical.
Sure.
Let's say you come to me and you say you have a party. You have a party at your house.
You know me.
And there's a catering you want to use. Catering. And you say, you know what, I want to use Jim's catering. Now, I maybe had a horrible experience one time with Jim's catering. So now, should I tell you that I had a horrible experience? I mean, you're my friend. I should tell you because you may have a bad experience, right? So I am allowed to say, this is not evil speech, what I'm about to say. I could say, Elisheva, just one time, and I'm the only person, I don't know anybody else, But this one time, I did have an experience I wasn't too happy about, and then I become specific. The food was good, the timing was off, the taste was, a 6 out of 10. I'm being very accurate, not emotional about it. I'm not exaggerating. Now, what if you said, I'm using Jim's catering, and then I did engage in evil speech? I would say, Jim is
that son of a...
Jim is the worst caterer in the world.
Right.
What do you mean the worst caterer in the world? I'm sure there's worse caterers than Jim.
But by the way, I want to say something. If I didn't tell you I was having Jim, there would be no place for you to tell me about your experience.
Well,
I want to
it's
make
not a problem that you told me you're having.
No, I'm saying
right.
the reason it's okay for you to share what you said in an unbiased, unattached way is because I told you I was going into business with him.
Right.
If you had just had your party and called me up the next day and said, Elisheva,
Never
don't
use
ever
Jim. Right.
That's not okay.
Right. And this is so important because it's very hard to understand all the laws of evil speech and what's tale-bearing. It's almost impossible. But what we can start with is the accuracy and the taking out the personal part of it.
The attachment.
Be very accurate. And that's why when people come to me and tell me things about this happened, that happened, this one, I said, well, have we validated it yet? I mean, and it's amazing because 90% of the time when you really dig into what they said, it's not accurate.
And it's attached to all the other times people have done those things to them. And
Exactly.
it becomes this blown up, exaggerated, nobody even raised their voice.
Which is what Daniel said, is because
Right.
people are bringing all their emotion into it and all their past life into it and they got hurt at this and that. So they bundle all that up and then they give you that information. And all it does is create chaos. The people who are going to create miracles in this world are the people who are champions of accuracy. I think that's because I think everyone's all about truth. The truth. Let's find out the truth. The truth actually is not. It's very relative. Therefore, people who look for the truth always kind of end up in some form of chaos or negativity. I think it's all about pause. Let's get the accuracy, and there might be 6 different ways of looking at something, which all of 6 are accurate. So we need to have a place for all these 6 different things. You said this, she said that. Well, you're both accurate based on your own relative points of view. And if you're a champion of accuracy, you'll see that the drama in your life diminishes tremendously. So I think that's like one practical thing everyone can take a step back. Most likely whatever you're hearing is not fully accurate. Probe in and find more what is accurate.
Makes me think on how dangerous it is to leave reviews now.
I was thinking the same thing, and the truth is people don't understand how destructive reviews can be. I mean, in the online world, a review can destroy your business. And what I tell people is, if you had a bad experience, what you should
contact them directly.
If
you had a good experience, post it.
Exactly.
Totally.
Every owner I know prefers not only that you reach out to them first, every owner I know, but number 2, they're willing to do anything and everything to get you to become a happy customer.
Totally.
So you're going to get a lot more than just venting your negativity.
Tweeting your negativity.
Yeah, it's even so much easier in our day and age.
You don't have to
do that.
You
We're
don't
just
have to pick up the phone.
just write a comment, right? And we don't realize the magnitude and the ripple effect it has.
But I think it's important to say, if you have a negative claim, does it deserve to be taken care of? Yes. Here comes the weekly energy boost and tells you don't do it publicly.
Don't do it.
Right.
Public is the last step, and even then, I'm not sure I would do it.
It's because it's not worth it. The chaos that it brings
So much
to
chaos.
you is not worth the attention or the rectification you will get from your negative review.
Well, how about this? Next time you leave a negative review without actually reaching out to the company and trying to proactively rectify the situation, just imagine that as soon as you leave that negative review, someone's going to leave a negative review about your kid in school. How about that? You're still going to leave. That's
no,
it.
But David,
That's it. Make
I
it
think
personal.
you got to bring it back to relationships.
Make it personal.
You're going to get kicked in the relationship gut.
Sure,
That's where
people are going
the
to speak bad
negative
about you.
words
You leave negative reviews,
hit.
people are going to speak bad about you and your kids. So if your kid did something, do you want that the teacher talks about it in front of the whole class? No, you'd want the teacher to come to you first as the parent and have a private discussion and not embarrass the child. So why would you go leave a public review that embarrasses the company? Think about it.
Maybe we should go back to the question I asked earlier, like why do we do that? Why do people do that? Like what drives us to leave this comment and say these things? Like
what do you think?
It's not about a think.
What do you feel as a Pisces? We have
What do
3
you
Pisces
know?
in the room.
Pisces here,
3
we all
Pisces in the
feel.
room. We just feel things.
We don't say think, feel. Well, there's always something that we're getting from it, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing it. And that's also something that I like to do with people, breaking down the limited beliefs. Always ask at some point, well, how does it serve you? What do you get from it? Because unless we don't know how to answer this question, it's a guarantee that we will stick with that destructive behavior.
So why do they leave the review?
Why they leave?
Why are they leaving it?
Because it gives us some energy, right? It makes us feel better, or it makes us feel like it gives us energy. Bottom line, in some way or another, it gives us energy.
Well, when I'm leaving a negative review, I'm really what I'm doing is I'm trying to hurt the person. And we know that
Retaliate.
hurt people, right? So if I feel hurt, the first thing I want to do when I'm hurt is just hurt somebody else. And I think this is also probably goes into your work of most people destroy things because they're hurt, or most people, abuse other people because they have hurt inside of them. They have lack, they have pain. And when we get that, as soon as you have a bad experience, you have pain and you want to fill that pain up with something. The easiest way to do it is make it public.
We're talking about the addiction to speaking badly. There's tons of addictions that give us that same rush, right? If somebody feels bad about themselves, they might pick up the phone and call a friend and talk about their terrible boss. Another person feels bad about themselves and they'll go to the Hershey store. Another person will go.
Guilt.
Okay.
People telling themselves how bad they are or how big of a mistake it is, going back to the negative self-talk, right? I find this is such a big one because it's obviously not serving me. It's obviously not bringing me forward or inspire me, but yet I keep on doing it because it's a way of somehow I feel powerless. I don't want to take responsibility, but I want to do something. So at least I'll beat myself up so it looks like I'm doing something.
You're productive.
Not only that,
guilt makes people feel productive.
Not only that, it looks like taking responsibility.
Right.
I'm owning what I did wrong, and I'm making myself miserable because of what I did.
All right, I'm going to make this even more practical for us now. Something that is a form of evil speech that people don't realize is, and I even felt, how many times do you get like a post or a message and it's some kind of like conspiracy theory, right? Like, let's say you got a post that says, everything Los Angeles is shutting down tomorrow. First thing you do is copy and paste that and put it in all your little chat rooms and send it to your friends. And you start just forwarding it, right?
Like literally never.
This
David?
This happens every 20 minutes. I get a new conspiracy theory, copy and paste it into my 400,000 WhatsApp groups. And it just gets, or like...
Just you, David. Just you, sorry.
This doesn't happen to you? This doesn't happen to you?
No.
And every time you share a post, let's say it's about something like, 5G.
I was
going to say, David, you're the only one sharing those. Sorry.
Listen. Let's say somebody makes, because I heard this from several people, because it's draining.
Those chat groups.
It's draining their energy. Come on, we're part of the same chat group.
We are in one shared chat group. That's it.
Oh, we see it all the time. But people have been telling me this week that the negativity around some of these conspiracy theories, true or not, it doesn't really matter. It drains the energy. Right. So let's say, for example, a post comes out, and it could even be accurate. 5G created the Loch Ness monster. Came out, and there's a monster. It's a monster going through. It. And I hit the share button.
Daniel's new to our show. He doesn't realize how far we go.
That's evil speech. Now, it doesn't matter if it's true or not. If it causes drama, it's evil speech. That's what I want to say. Right. If whatever you're doing, because a lot of people have this mentality, I need to destroy something to motivate people to build. Mm-hmm. Because people aren't listening to me. So I'm going to destroy everything. I'm going to create a major problem. I'm going to just like poison the well. I'm going to just like throw in a bomb. And it's going to get so bad that everyone's going to be motivated to fix it. That is the greatest form of destructive behavior, which is compatible with evil speech, because posting something, sharing something, and saying something, it's all equal in our time.
Okay.
Nope.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You're looking at me like I'm that monster.
I'm still bowled over by the conspiracy theory group chats.
I heard it from several people today. Like people are falling into the conspiracies. Someone comes and says, we're all going to be forced to be vaccinated in our homes. They're going to come to our home one by one. They're not going to let you leave the home until you get vaccinated. I mean, what do you do with that?
But you know who is all behind it, right?
the 5G. 5G is all behind it. So the point is, all of this stuff, just disconnect from it, because we learn in Kabbalah, as long as you live your life according to the spiritual laws of the tree of life that we talk about, which is extensive, the laws are extensive, and you live your life in the present, in the moment, and you apply these concepts day in and day out, you connect with the light of the Creator. You don't have to be busy with all the chatter and all the noise. All that stuff is a distraction.
Well, that's the power also of environment, right? Because the environment that we place ourselves in and we hear the same thing, eventually that becomes our self-talk, right? It's not just from childhood, it's literally right now in the environment that we find ourselves in. That's what we hear, that's what we're going to tell ourselves and start believe, right? And that's so, personally for me, why finding some alone time, whatever it is, I like meditation or whatever it is, going out and like finding some time a day, at least once a week, whatever it is, to separate from all the drama, like you were saying, and finding the voice that is true to me. Because it's only when I find my voice and not other people's voices and words, and I find my voice and my words that is really me, then I can strengthen that, and then I won't be overpowered by other people's words and voices, and I don't need to give into the drama.
Correct.
I think one of the more subtle ones is, there's a not nice way to say it. I'm going to call it false flattery.
Yeah, you don't want to say the brown nose?
I was going to say ass kissing, but the FCC might not let us.
Elisheva.
Yeah. So people don't realize that that's a form of negative speech, because the what David said before, accuracy, right? Some people might use the word truth. So truth and accuracy are synonymous. And when you use your words, because what's really happening when you're brown nosing, you are lying to forward your agenda. You're trying to get something in return, whether it's energy, freebies.
So what's wrong with that?
Well, as Daniel was mentioning, usually that lack that's looking to be filled is another one of those black holes. It's another addiction.
So that connects to shows that we said in the past. Anytime you do something from lack, it's going to end up in chaos.
But even looking at like the Yelp reviews, or the fact that like celebrities are so accessible via social media now, you see people brown nosing and throwing themselves in,
What we're saying is, as soon as you become needy
right,
of someone's energy or opinion or whatever, then often we follow up that neediness with a form of looking for their approval. So and I think also what we're saying is, when your insides don't match your outsides, this is a huge, huge disconnection from the light of the Creator. Whenever you feel something in your heart, maybe you hate this person, but they're in a position of power. So you are flattering them, and you are lying actually just to get them to like you, even though deep down inside you're like judging them, and you're like, oh, these people are so stupid. So that in and of itself, that dichotomy, that what's the word that we've used before?
Dissonance.
Dissonance, exactly. That dissonance is not good for our soul. It crushes the soul. It brings disease to the body. So anybody who experiences any form of dissonance, where your insides aren't matching your outside, you got to look into it. You got to break through.
Well,
that.
that's what Daniel does.
Daniel. That's a Daniel plug right there.
Dissonance doctor.
Dissonance doctor. I love it. There it is.
If we weren't 6 feet apart, we would have high-fived.
The dissonance doctor.
But that is a huge, correct me if I'm wrong, that is one of the greatest sources of not only emotional misery, but also physical pain.
Yeah.
The illness becomes, the word dis-ease is when there's lack of congruence between the soul and the body. And that's why the work that you do is so essential for people, is the moment something else clicks, right? And I know that we've all felt that click before, but in the work that you do with people, it's like the chiropractor getting, putting that one vertebra back into place, it changes everything. And I know from the people that I've spoken to that have done that work, it's so simple. It's not usually something complicated, and you never would have it's obvious once you identify it and you see it. And I just want to give you a chance, before we're getting towards the end of the show, believe it or not, what they take away from the meeting with you, the session with you, you give them what? that prescription, that personalized, it's a meditation, it's a mantra. Can you tell us more about it?
It really has two parts. So the first part, as I shared before, is the digging part, asking questions, really getting to the core cause level limited belief, which once we identify it, it's interesting you mentioned that we both feel it. We said, yes, that's what it is. And then we cannot even imagine how much side effects stems from that simple limited cause, root level limited belief. The second part is accessing the subconscious mind, because that's where the limited beliefs lies. And the only way to do that is not by giving them more information or asking more questions or giving them a very nice teaching. The only way I know, the most effective way I know to do that is through meditation. And meditation is not very complicated, very simple one, very Kabbalistic, simple technique to just relax. And what I do is provide this guided meditation where they can simply access that subconscious level and through the guided meditation really let it go.
And you do all of this in 45 minutes?
Yeah, 45 to an hour.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Letting that go. And then the last part is I'm giving them affirmation, because I believe that there's follow-up work that requires. So I identify what's the lie, I let go the lie, and now I need to reinforce the truth. And that's the power of affirmation. I've been telling myself the truth. Our teacher, the Rav, would like to say that, that there's certain bad people in the past, dictators, that repeated the lie 1,000 times and people eventually believed it. Our teacher, the Rav, would say, my job is to repeat the truth 1,000 times until they will eventually believe it. So also for ourselves, we've been buying into the lie that the opponent told us for years and years. Now, I find affirmation powerful because when we tell ourselves the truth 1,000 times, we can also change that and start a new story.
Someone is asking a really good question in the comments. I think we could give it
the slander one.
If you discover that someone is slandering you, should you call them out on it? And is it evil speech to call them out on it or expose the lies they've been telling about you?
We've spoken about this before.
We have spoken about it, but I think especially for the people who are joining us for the first time and don't have time to go back into the library and listen to those shows, it's a really valid.
It's a valid point. I think the rule always is you don't react and you get excited about the fact that someone's speaking bad about you. We have shared that when someone is speaking bad about you, true or false, and you don't react, it says that it cleanses negativity from your soul in a big way. So you have to kind of look at the macro picture of why it's happening to you. It can be as a blessing to diminish and cleanse you of negativity by not reacting. Once you've gotten to a place of full acceptance of the situation and you don't care one way or another that it's happening, which is a very high level of consciousness to reach, at that point, you may approach the person and ask them to stop or rescind what they're doing because it's not good for them or anybody. It's not about you being hurt. It's more about the collective, how we can all live in harmony, and it's not good for the other person to be doing something like this if they're open. A lot of times they're not open, so you have to just take it, accept it, be excited about it, and move on.
Okay. I think it's a real life thing, especially online when it seems, before in order to spread a rumor, you had to pick up the phone and tell a lot of people, and that was time consuming. Now you hit send and, a person's life can be destroyed. So I think it's a very valid thing. The one form of evil speech that I think it's important to talk about that I think also connects to the work, Daniel's work with people and the work that we do with students as well, is when you have the opportunity to speak up and you don't. That has a special category of and within itself that I think if we would all, maybe this week, everybody who's listening can take upon themselves, of course, on one form of negative speech that they can restrict on, that they can take responsibility to not pollute the air with for, let's say, at least the week, if not forever. But the other thing is where am I not speaking up? Where is there something positive that needs to be said or some negativity that I have the ability to interrupt? That I'm not saying because I don't want to rock the boat or I don't want to seem holier than thou. That we've all been in those scenarios where we're watching something happen that shouldn't happen, or we're listening to something being said that shouldn't be said, and we clam up.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest mantra for me. The biggest challenge I can think about 3 opportunities I had just this morning about this one. So it's always a struggle. But thank you for reminding me about this, because I think it's important to know that just as it's bad to say the wrong things or the bad things, it's just as negative to when I, like you said, have the opportunity to speak up and I don't. That it's depriving other people from light and opportunities that they needed. And we always need to view ourselves as maybe I am the channel. Because sometimes we give ourselves
Like, why am I seeing this, or why am I hearing this?
So the rule of thumb is, if it's difficult for me and I don't want to do it, most likely I should. And if I can't help myself and I have to say it and I can't restrict, then probably I shouldn't.
Probably.
And we still need to follow the laws of pause and make sure that it's not coming from a place that it's personal. So even people who hold everything in and shut down, those people shouldn't just immediately blurb out, blah, blah, this happened to me, or confront the person. They still need to go through the pause, to look inside themselves, to come from a place of strength and not from a place of lack. But definitely they need to speak up. That's the idea. But still, to go through that process that we talk about in Kabbalah 1.
Right.
I have another one on the list here. The Kabbalists say also why people speak evil speech, because they surround themselves with people who speak evil speech. And your network is
All the cool kids are doing it.
Your network is your net worth.
Wow. Whoa. Mic drop.
I obviously didn't make that up. It's something that's been passed around a lot, but I love it. Your network is your net worth. And pretty much whatever you're surrounding yourself with absorbs into your essence. And what kind of friends do you have? Or what kind of people do you associate yourself with? What kind of people do you find yourself just calling or calling you? And that will also determine what kind of words and will come out of you. That's probably the biggest determinator of how you speak, is who you surround yourself with. And I have another one here. This is an interesting one. This caught me off guard when I first learned about it. Bringing up the past, something negative that happened in someone's past, even in jest or joking.
Mocking.
It's a form of mockery. So, for example, if I say, Elisheva, remember when you were a kid and you were so bad, something like that, right? Or do you remember?
Actually, I do remember that. Thank you.
Do you remember? And you may be saying it because today the person is great and whatever, but there's a fine line there where if you bring up stuff that people did in the past, you drudge up that negativity. It's a form of evil speech because it makes a person feel bad, and it brings up wounds again. Now, of course, if it's Daniel bringing up stuff with a positive intention and consciousness in a closed private space with the permission of the other person, that's fine. But many times we just we're very nonchalant about bringing up stuff in the past because we assume that they don't have it anymore.
We're not sensitive in that moment to the embarrassment that it might cause the other person or to the pain it might awaken, and I think that as aspiring spiritual beings, part of the taking responsibility for our speech, our words, is really paying attention. Is now the right time? Is this the right environment? Am I building? Am I destroying? Having that pause, as David mentioned, is really what distinguishes us from the mindless conversationalists we don't want to be. And that's really, this week is going to highlight for us. Pay attention, be aware. This week is going to highlight for us that negative self-talk. It may sound like the volume has been turned up on that. Pay attention to it and interrupt it. That's one of the reasons we wanted Daniel to be here. We arranged for our listeners a special discount, as we did with Kabbalah1.com. We have a special discount for sessions with Daniel, which he's able to do via Zoom, Skype, FaceTime. That soul affirmation session is out here. You can see the link. We'll also put the link in the comments.
What is it? It's an hour session, right?
It's an hour?
Yeah.
It's an hour session.
How much is an hour session usually? Because I can't see it on the screen.
$202.
$202, and what's the discount?
I think it's 25% off.
25%.
Yeah. So you can click the link. If you're listening on the podcast and you cannot see the link, email us at energyboost@kabbalah.com and we will send it to you with the discount code. Daniel, thank you for joining us. Maybe we can find another week where our words are going to be high enough. We'll bring you back and we'll give our listeners an opportunity to hear even more aspects of how powerful we are and how simple it can be to revealing that power. As always, you can find us everywhere you find our podcasts. We are here every morning, 10 a.m. Pacific.
I rated the podcast this week for the first time. I think it'd be great if people could rate our podcast.
Absolutely.
Give us a good review.
Good review.
There you go.
Good review.
That's everyone's assignment this week.
Do you know if you give a good review, it actually removes the negative speech of the past?
You heard it here first, folks, on the Weekly Energy Boost. Have a fabulous week,